Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. So, how I have read books has changed over the years, but one thing that I wish I'd known earlier in life was how to read analytically and get the most out of the books that I read. We aren't taught at school the magic of making literature work for us. We're not taught how much power the reader has in contorting the text to blend with how their brain works and get more out of the book than the author ever intended. Huge shout out to Roland Barthes for putting this as far better than I ever could right now. So let's talk about what analytical reading is and is not. You see, most people dislike analytical reading because school teachers never explained the beauty of it properly. You know, if I had £1 for every adult who made the joke, "Oh, why were the curtains blue? Because it symbolised the author's sadness." No, it didn't. The curtains were just bloody blue. Well, I'd have a decent chunk of my doctorate paid off for me. Analytical reading isn't about reading things into the text that the author never intended to put there for the sake of putting words into the author's mouth, or adding depth that the author never intended there to be. Analytical reading is about transforming how the text can be read to add depth beyond what the author intended, because that's how literature changes the world and people's lives. It's discovering how it could be read from different perspectives, philosophical standpoints, and theoretical approaches. Because looking at that offers fascinating insight into the human psychological, societal, and cultural evolution. Analytical reading isn't about assuming the author intended anything with what they wrote, but rather exploring how the author can be interpreted and what that means for the evolution of the text over its lifetime. So before we get into how to get the most out of reading in an analytical point of view, whether you're a student or just someone who wants to get more out of the books they read, I'd like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, which is Squarespace. Now, as you know, I've built all of my business website over the years with As you may know, I've built all of my websites over the years with Squarespace because I love how intuitive and easy it makes website design and layout. You know, I don't know anything about coding, I'm a book person, not a coding person, which has made using other website platforms incredibly frustrating because you change one thing and the whole thing breaks and you're like, why? But with Squarespace, I simply drag and drop my content where I want it. And if you're a creator who wants to expand your revenue stream, particularly now we're in a new year, Squarespace is an all-in-one platform that makes it easy for you to monetize your content and expertise in a way that fits your brand. Squarespace member area lets you sell your courses or classes to your followers, and Squarespace also has an inbuilt email campaign option where you can collect email subscribers and convert them into loyal customers all from your website. You don't have to keep going to different platforms. And the built-in analytics feature gives you insight into who's visiting your site, the traffic sources, the time they spend on your site, most read content, and so much more. So if you want to expand your business or just build a beautiful website for your blogging leisure, then go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Lady of the Library to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So, how to get the most out of the books you read. Now, how I read now as a PhD student differs greatly from how I read at school or during my bachelor's or my master's. However, some of the basic principles to getting the most out of reading remain the same. So, these tips should help anyone get more out of what they're reading, regardless if they're reading for studying or for leisure. So the first thing is to ask yourself why you're reading. Whether you're reading a novel for, personal pleasure or you're reading a book for your studies, you should always come up with a why behind your decision to read this text that will go deeper than the superficial reasons of such as it's a popular book on Book Talk, because my book club chose it, or because I have to for this module. Look at the book that you're about to read. Read the blurb and ask yourself why you may be interested or why you may not be interested in reading this book. Are there elements about the book that pique your interest, like the subject matter, the jobs that the characters have, or the time period that it focuses on? Or are these elements of the book things that are actually turning you off reading the book? Note these things down about the book that either pique your interest or discourage you from reading it. Those are some of your whys for reading the book. So whether you have positive or negative reactions to the book's details at face value, your motivation for reading can be as simple as proving yourself right or wrong with your assumptions. After all, you may be pleasantly surprised and have your concerns disproven, or you may feel disappointed or fulfilled or inspired to read more. Other why reasons for reading a book, which are more practical in nature, particularly when reading non-fiction, include a desire to learn more about the background of a subject, understand a theory or perspective more, confront or hear challenging challenging or different viewpoints, or uncover evidence to back up your own lived experiences or beliefs. The second is to engage with your text through active reading. Now, most of us know how to read casually. We do it daily. We casually read emails or texts or news articles online or tweets or the comments in the comment section or captions under images. And you can read books in the same way that you read a text from a friend. But if you want to get more out of a book, you will need to engage with the text via active reading. Now, active reading usually demands a pen and pencil, a notebook or sticky notes based on your personal preferences, and a willingness to reread and read slowly. So for every article, chapter of a book or essay that I read, I apply the steps of active reading, which are as follows. A. I read through the selection of the text once to get an overall impression at a slow-ish, careful speed. Here I take note of the general structure of the chapter or essay, from natural breaks to subheadings, images, or changes in narrative or location if I'm reading fiction. B. During the first read, I underscore or mark any words or passages I don't understand straight away and want to revisit. At this stage, I refrain from looking up anything. C. After finishing my first read-through, I return to the beginning and read it again a little faster, focusing on reaching the sections that I highlighted or marked. D. During my second read-through, I take notes of everything that caught my attention the first time. I write down definitions of words I didn't know, I write down questions I would like to answer about the section, and highlight parts that I enjoyed for the sake of their own enjoyment. Then E. If you're studying a text for academic reasons, you will also find it useful to summarise the section in your own words to help you understand or recall it later, or recall it better. F. Finally, analyse what you read. Look at the notes that you jotted down and ask yourself questions that you still have about what you read. It also really helps to talk about what you read with a friend, or if you don't have anyone to talk to, write down your thoughts in a diary, in a notebook, or even on Notion. Now, active reading requires more time and energy than casual reading, so don't be upset if you read slower than you may want to, especially if you're one of those who just kind of wants to tick off as many books as possible due to a Goodreads reading channel. The next is to reflect on the book critically. So after reading a text, reflect on what you've read critically by identifying the strengths and weaknesses of the work. Analyse how it aligns with or goes against what other similar texts you have read in this genre. Where are there plot holes or gaps of information that weren't addressed? Did you learn anything new whilst reading it, from new words to new concepts, ideas or perspectives? Or are you left up with more questions than answers? You can type up your thoughts again on Notion or write them down on sticky notes in the end of the chapter or in a notebook. Sometimes I actually keep all of my sticky notes at the back of the book itself. Wherever you prefer to store your knowledge, that's where it should work best. The next thing is to ask yourself, how would you like to read the book? So after finishing a book, whether fiction or non-fiction, you always get the power to take the book into your own hands and ask yourself, how would I like this book to be seen? So this is how academics approach literature. After reading a text and identifying the themes and patterns, they create a personalised understanding of the text, which can be enriched with secondary research. So perhaps you read a text that has a prison scene in it, and then you'd like to analyse it from the context of prison systems in Victorian England, for example, or contemporary America. Or maybe there was an autistic character in the book which you didn't think was presented accurately, so you would like to look at this book from that perspective. You see, as I said at the beginning, people wrongly assume that reading analytically means forcing meanings and symbols into a text which the author never intended, but that's not what it's about at all. Analytical reading is about you inserting your thoughts, ideas and curiosities into a text and expounding upon them through discussion, research and critical reading and analysis. It's about getting the most out of a text for you because certain ideas, thoughts, symbols and images piqued your interest, and therefore you would like to highlight those and spark a wide discussion around them. So final thoughts. Getting more out of the books you read requires patience, thoughtfulness and compassion for yourself as a reader and for the text that you're reading. You don't have to do this for every book that you read. If you want to read something casually, as you would a news article or a text from a friend, then there's no harm in doing that. But sometimes you come across a book that really hits you hard in a way that makes you want to stop and savour the moment. And that is when reading analytically can really bring a book to life in ways that you would never have experienced had you read it quickly and flippantly just to mark another book off your Goodreads to be read list. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing to this channel. If you have any requests for any similar videos, I have a little box, like a Google form in the description box down below that you can send your requests to, so please send them there. As always, thank you to my patrons for making this video possible. I really appreciate it. And I will see you soon for another video. And remember, books save lives, so keep reading.